Hi, it's Terri Gaines. I'm going to give you some assembly tips on creating this fun card with a sliding closure. You slide the image down, it opens up for your card and your inside sentiment. And to close it, you just bring that flap down and this image slides up and closes the card. It's a fairly easy card to make, great technique to share, and I'm going to give you some assembly tips. So for this card, we need cardstock. I'm using basic black, that is 5.5 by 10.25, and we'll score this in a second. Then I have another basic black cardstock that's 5.25 by 4. Also, you need a 1.5 inch circle. So I'm just going to punch that from a piece of scratch cardstock, and this is for the embellishing of the card. Then I have the Poppy Parade. This is 3 3/4 by 5. For this piece, because it's going to be sandwiched in the inside of the card with the sentiment that's stamped on a 3.5 by 4 3/4, it's going to be sandwiched in there. That's where I'm going to take some additional images that we need. This is a new punch that's in the mini catalog. It is called Label Me Lovely, and it's great for layering and doing different images. So I'm going to punch that out of this piece of cardstock. Also, for the back of that sliding closure, we have a 1 inch circle, and it doesn't matter what color that is, nobody's going to even see it, it's hidden. So I'm going to go ahead and take that out of this layer also. So the next piece is the 3.5 by 4 3/4. So why don't I just go ahead right now and adhere those two together. So this will just save a little bit of the assembly. And I'm just going to apply my adhesive in the corners here. And I'm going to go ahead and layer this together. So this is part of our assembly. So this will be all set for the inside of the card when we're ready for that. So then we need a piece of designer series paper, and the designer series paper is 5.25 by 4. And then also for the embellishment, I am using an image from the Peaceful Poppies Elements. This is a wonderful little element kit. You get 8 sheets, 2 on watercolor paper, 2 on vellum, some black images, and then some images that are cardstock weight that are already colored in for you. So I'll need one of those, have one right there also. So 2 sheets of each, so 8 sheets all together in there. And then we need some ribbon. I'm going to use the 1/4 inch seam binding. It's crinkled seam binding, and I'm going to go ahead and make my bow right now. I like to leave the ribbon on the spool when I make my bow, and this way I save some ribbon. And I wonder if I have a scissors handy. I think I've got scissors right here. Yep. Grab that. I didn't think about grabbing a paper snips. I still have this big shears that Stampin' Up! Used to sell that I love using with ribbon. So there we go. Those are our pieces for embellishments. So I am going to actually adhere all of this together. This will save a little bit of time. Well, it's time spent now versus later putting this together. So this is the embellishment that is part of the closure. And on this piece, I'm going to use mini glue dots to attach that. So I'm just going to bring it to the mini glue dots, pick up about 3 of those, that should be good. And I'm going to just adhere this like so. And the little ribbon will attach that. Get some of these pieces all ready for assembly. And then I'm going to take your pick tool, just kind of hide those mini glue dots if they're exposed a little bit, tuck them underneath, and then we'll just I'll add that right here. So that little piece is already embellished for us. All right, so let's score this cardstock. This cardstock is going to be our main cardstock base. We need to score this in 4 different locations. So the width is 5.5, the length is 10.25. So this is going to be scored at 4 1/4, then at 4 3/8. So just 1 notch beyond that. It's going to be scored at 8 5/8 and 8 3/4. So those are the 4 locations we need to score that. The Simply Scoring tool works great. I'm going to actually just leave it here in place because it's also going to be helpful. It works great for scoring, but it's going to be helpful for creasing these areas too. So I'm going to crease right on that score line, and then I'm going to take the bone folder and crease that. And then the next score line is really close. It's just 1/8 of an inch over, and sometimes that gets a little hard to have the cardstock fold there, but pushing up against here sometimes is helpful for that. And again over here, score that or fold it, crease it with the bone folder, and then just work this next one, bring that over. I'm resting everything up against that, and makes it much easier to score those. So we just have a little bit of a depth to our card. There's going to be dimensionals in there, that's why we need that depth. Whoops, just dropped the bone folder, but that's okay, we won't need it again. All right, so now this is how the card's going to open. So first of all, I'm going to attach this designer series paper. We're going to be punching through this. I'm comfortable punching through designer series paper and cardstock, both. I would not use, I would not punch through 2 layers of cardstock. That I think is too much for a consistent punching on your punch. So now what I'm going to do is just watching those corners, and the rest should fall into place. Now this closure can be on either side of your card. If you'd rather have it on this side, and you could do that. I'm going to keep it on this side, and the guide for punching this is placing this classic label punch, letting your cardstock rest all the way down. It's important that it's resting all the way down, and I'm going to use my finger as a guide right here so it's flush to the edge of the punch, and I'm going to punch that out. When I put this designer series paper on, I just put adhesive on the edge. I didn't put any in the middle because I don't want to punch through any adhesive here. It could get into your punch and cause some issues with that. So just be sure you avoid putting adhesive there. Now what I'm going to do is rest it all the way down on this other side, and I'm going to visually see that score line and punch that out. We don't need very much punched out here, but we need enough that it will catch as it slides. So now, because you kept it resting equally and down to the punch, it's the same depth from this edge. So we're good on that. So now what we need to do is put several pieces of dimensional on the back of this, because it's going to be the, let's see, it's got some depth in here so you can keep the slider from running against the cardstock, and also it's going to hide this opening. So to do that, I'm going to use the black dimensionals, which work out perfect. There's a couple things to keep in mind, that you don't want to go too close to this closure, because this little circle is going to go up and down here. So what I would advise you to do is to go halfway between this opening and the edge of the paper to place your dimensionals. And what you're going to do is put several of these. So what we want to make sure is that this piece of cardstock that we're putting on here does not collapse and push against. So we're going to put several, and to save some time, I actually have that done already. You can see that I have several on here, and this is going to help from keeping the 2 cardstock pieces separate from each other. So now what I'm going to do is we're going to set that aside. Now what I'm going to do is take 1 dimensional and put it on the back of this little 1-inch circle. This 1-inch circle is going to go in this direction. And that dimensional fits in perfect there, and that's what our image is going to slide up and down on. So you can see that's why I needed to make sure the dimensionals didn't get close to it, so it slides up and down and doesn't get caught. I also want to make sure it stays in there until I get the backing on here, so I'm just going to twist it a little bit. By twisting it a little bit, it doesn't fall out. It allows me to take the backing off of all these pieces. And what I'm going to do is put the same color cardstock on here. That's going to be the basic black that's cut 5 1/4 by 4. And as I mentioned, it's going to be the backing. So it just takes a little while to get all these backing pieces off. And these are the black dimensionals, which are going to be perfect for this card because I've got the black cardstock. And once I have all of these off, the dimension on this piece of cardstock is 1/4 inch smaller than the panel. And I did that purposely. So what I'm going to do, and that's the best angle at that, just place that. The reason I did that is because it's the same color. You can't really see it, it camouflages, but I don't want to add in any extra bulk right in that area. So as long as I have this card open like this, we're going to go ahead and put our sentiment piece in here. And I forgot to make a mention, and let's see if I did that right. You gotta make sure that this is right reading, that you don't put this designer series paper on upside down. So the next thing I'm going to do is untwist this so it slides easier in that opening. I'm going to bring it all the way to the bottom. I'm going to hold this flap down like this, and then I'm going to take the backing off, and then the placement of this image is going to be where it is below that flap. And then I'm going to let it touch that dimensional. Now we have a closure that will slide up, close the card, slide down, and open the card. And that's how easy it is. And it is a very fun technique card to make. And you can change up your colors and your sentiments and your punches and make all kinds of fun different sliding cards. So if you found me via YouTube, you can look in the comment section and find a direct link to my blog post where I'll have the dimensions, measurements, and instructions. There'll be a PDF tutorial you can download, excuse me. And then I would love to have you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just click the red box in the bottom. Thanks for stopping by, and I hope you enjoyed creating this project with me.